Here's what sets F1 apart from other motorsports or sports: the car. Because it doesn't matter how good the driver is. If they have a terrible car, they're not going to win. For example, Hamilton with Mercedes this season. So how good the car is can be super important, which is exactly why we'll be talking about the 9 best F1 cars of all time in today's video. So make sure to stay until the end. First up, at number 9, we have the McLaren Honda MP44. Seriously folks, where else did you expect us to start? The MP44 is statistically the best F1 car of all time. And then you add the absolutely crazy driving abilities of Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, and you get something beautiful. Something so beautiful that this car won 15 of the 16 races that season. That's a victory rate of 93.8%. Coming to the end of the first Turbo F1 era, McLaren's first step towards dominance was to steal the engine supply of its rivals. Basically, Williams had won the last 2 Constructors' Championships with Honda, while McLaren's engine was financed in-house and built by Porsche. Wow, it seems like whoever has a Honda engine in their car is most likely going to win. Because while this happened decades ago, let's not forget that Red Bull started using the Honda engine in 2019. And well, they won in 2021 and 2022. Next up at number 8 we have the Alfa Romeo 158-9 Alfetta. Alright, we know what you're thinking. Wait, this isn't an F1 car, and you'd be right. The 158 was built to race in Voiturette class racing, which was a separate racing class. The car was doing alright, not too bad, not too good. And then World War II came. What did that do? It made racing pretty much redundant. Then in 1950, someone had the fun idea of setting up a new world championship of drivers. So at Silverstone that year, F1 was born. That's when the 158 was used. It can't hold the record of the most dominant car, since it wasn't eligible for every race, but it was really good. So good that it still won 85% of the races that season. Wait, but we just talked about a car that won 93.8%. How is this car better than that? Well folks, what you need to know here is that while it won 85% of the total races, it won 100% of the races that it entered. Yep, isn't that crazy? Up next at number 7, the Ferrari 500. Did you guys really think that we were going to talk about the best F1 cars and not going to mention Ferrari? When Alfa had packed up its 160, there was space for someone else to dominate. And luckily for Ferrari, it was them. As regulations changed, this car wasn't an F1 car, no, it was an F2 car. And Ferrari was the only one to have a car already designed for the new formula. When this car was put in the hands of Alberto Ascari, it repeated the feats of the Alfa. It won every single race that it entered. After 2 seasons, the rules were reverted to Formula 1 regs. So this meant that the 500 retired with a 100% championship record and a 93.3% win record in the races it had entered. Now for another Ferrari, the F2002, at number 6. Now here's the thing, Ferrari pretty much dominated from 2000 to 2004. It's like comparing Red Bull's 2012 season to Red Bull's 2013 season, while the F2002 and F2004 are the cars that really dominated. By winning 15 races each, the F2002 takes the trophy, since it achieved that feat with 1 fewer race. At this point, Ferrari was so darn dominant that it didn't even introduce the F2002 until the 3rd race of that season. It was powered by a screaming 3-liter V10. However, it wasn't the fastest car on the grid. No, that was actually the Williams, powered by BMW. But this car was just so superb at handling. It featured an innovative, clutchless gearbox that was super small, and the rear could be packaged in almost any way Rory Byrne, the designer, wished. And then, of course, you pair that up with Michael frickin' Schumacher, and then you get a car that just absolutely destroyed everyone on the track. Moving on to number 5, the Mercedes W07 Hybrid. Mercedes' achievements from 2014 to 2021, well okay, to 2020 are quite frankly amazing. They even managed to eclipse Ferrari's performance when they were dominant. And while the car didn't have a high win percentage like the McLaren in 1988, the continued nature of the winning streak puts this car high up on this list. In 2016, Lewis took 10 victories in this car, while his teammate Nico Rosberg took 9. That means they secured a win rate of 90.4%, which in this era is actually quite impressive. Not only that, but this car also has the most wins in a season, the most points in a season, the most podiums, and the most pole positions in a single season. And if that wasn't enough, it also has the highest percentage of poles in a season at, wait for it, 95.2%. The heart of the success of Silver Arrows lies in the understanding of the 1.6-liter V6 regulations. Their power unit was just miles ahead of the rest, and this dominance in the engine department allowed the team to experiment with its design. So the W07 was quite different from the other cars on the grid. It had a lower noise, and none of the protrusions many still had in order to meet the safety regs. Following that, at number 4, the Red Bull RB9. This is another tricky car to pick. When you look back at the 2010 to 2013 period in general, it shows was absolute dominance from Red Bull, Sebastian Vettel and Adrian Newey, but in 2010 and 2012, not everything went right for them. Fernando Alonso could, and he should have, dragged the slower Ferrari to the championship in 2012, and would have won the championship in 2010 if it wasn't for his lack of ability to pass Vitaly Petrov. In 2011 and 13, though, the story was completely different. In 11, the RB7 won 12 of the 19 races. Wait, we said the RB9, not the RB7. Then why we bring the 7 up? Well, because the RB7 is quite good too, but it's not on this list because the RB9 won 13 of the 19 races that it entered, and to think that the RB9 was actually kinda underdeveloped, thanks to the intense title fight in 2012. Let's talk about the number 3 best F1 car of all time, the Lotus 72. 20 wins in 75 races doesn't at all sound as impressive as the other cars that we just talked about, but the Lotus 72 had another trick up its sleeve. It won 2 Drivers' Championships and 3 Constructors' Cups, and all of this happened within a span of 6 seasons. So you're probably wondering how this car is here on this list? We mean, it was an okay car, wasn't it? Well, it's because no other cars had such longevity of success as the 72. It holds the record for the longest time between the first and last victories for an F1 car. Like, come on, to be competitive for a total of 5 seasons and then racing in the 6th, it's pretty mind-boggling, considering how disposable the cars now are. If the F2002, 500, and 158 impressed you, this car was in a world of its own. Let's look at number 2, the Williams FW14B. This might just be our personal favorite car. When it arrived on the scene, it was a marvel. It was so advanced from the rest of its competition that it wasn't even funny. It did have some issues, so that meant it couldn't win the title that year, but it still did manage 7 wins. But then in 1992, work was done to fix the gearbox. The traction control system was updated, and the suspension was tweaked. Now, this new car was just a beast out there. It won 5 races in a row and won 9 races, which was a new record at the time in a season. It also qualified for the pole in every single race except one. Finishing up at number 1, McLaren MP42. This masterpiece won its debut in 1984, then went on to add another 11 wins that season, 6 after that, and 2 more in 1986. It won 2 Constructors' Cups and a Drivers' Championship for Niki Lauda, and 2 Drivers' Championships for Alain Prost. It came with a turbocharged V6 built by Porsche. It became the car that was so hard to beat that the rest of the grid struggled to even remain on the same lap, although this car was terrible in qualifying. On race day, it was unstoppable. It wasn't until the arrival of Williams with Honda in '86 that this car became second on the grid. But even then, thanks to the sheer tenacity of Alain Prost, the MP42 took the driver's title one more time. Anyway, that's a wrap for today's video. Which one of these cars is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like and make sure you're subscribed. Having said that, see you in the next one.